Workplace safety and welfare. Slips, trips and falls. In 2013 to 2014, 28% of work-related injuries were caused by slips, trips and falls. However, these kinds of accidents are often the easiest to prevent, providing that suitable procedures are in place. Causes of slips include floor contamination — the majority of floors become slippery once something has been spilled on them — loose mats and rugs, sloping surfaces and spillages. Causes of trips include trailing electrical cables, objects obstructing walkways. Around a fifth of all slip and trip accidents are blamed on people falling over some sort of obstruction. Uneven surfaces, loose floorboards or floor coverings, and sudden changes in surface levels such as ramps or steps. Falls are the single biggest cause of workplace deaths and are one of the main causes of major injuries. Many serious and even fatal workplace injuries are caused by falls below head height, such as from a ladder or from standing on a chair. The Health and Safety Executive has identified a range of human factors contributing to slip and trip accidents. Risk assessments and control measures must take into account these human factors, which include poor perception of risk, lack of awareness of slip and trip hazards, failure to clean up spillages, failure to report slip and trip incidents, inadequate action on reported problems, lack of understanding of health and safety problems. There are a number of prevention methods that can be used to eradicate the likelihood of slips, trips and falls in the workplace. In regards to slips, the first step is to identify where the contamination comes from and prevent it from getting on the floor in the first place. For example, floors that are wet from cleaning, leaking pipes, spillages, or wet weather. Work activities such as cleaning and maintenance can create temporary slip or trip hazards, and so should be carefully planned. Ensure that your workplace is well lit, as inadequate lighting can make it difficult to spot trip hazards. Seasonal factors can also cause many problems, such as wet walkways and fallen leaves making paths slippery, and shorter daylight hours making visibility poor. You may want to consider control measures such as lids or fill lines on containers, fixing any leaking machines, drip trays, screens to stop splashes, choose an effective cleaning method with the right equipment, wet floor signs, a clean as you go policy for spills, sensible non-slip footwear, regular maintenance of paving and floorboards etc., staff training, good housekeeping, safe use of ladders, fall prevention equipment. Electrical safety. The Health and Safety Executive estimates that every year there are around 1,000 accidents relating to electricity. Equipment must be installed, used and maintained correctly to help reduce the likelihood of hazards and injuries occurring. There is no visible way to tell whether an electrical cable is live or not, so if you're working near cables, always assume that they are live. Hazards include working near overhead power lines, coming into contact with power lines such as if a ladder accidentally touches one, smoking power tools, burn, scorch marks or burning smells that indicate a fault, damaged leads and cables, faulty or damaged appliances. The frequency of inspection and testing depends upon the type of equipment and the environment it is used in. Any damaged or broken equipment should be discarded safely. If you come across someone who has had an electric shock, don't touch them with your bare hands whilst they are in contact with electrical current. Try to move the person away from the source using a piece of wood to break contact with the electricity. If the shock is near water, don't reach into the water in which there's an electrical current or you may be electrocuted. Turn off the power at the mains if possible, or unplug the appliance. Do not touch anything made of metal or any object that is wet. Once the area is safe, check the person's airway and breathing. If they are not breathing, have someone call the emergency services on 999 or 112 whilst you give CPR. If you are alone, give the person CPR first before calling the emergency services. An electric shock can also cause a serious burn. Even if a burn doesn't look too bad on the outside, it could be deep and painful. Call 999 or 112 for emergency help if the person has burns or is unconscious. Please take a look at these electrical safety signs. Fire safety. Workplace fires can be catastrophic for any organisation. It is estimated by the government that up to 80% of businesses never fully recover from a serious fire. Fires also create lost production time and a consequential loss of market share and customer goodwill. The Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005 requires all employers to take reasonable steps to reduce the risk from fire and make sure people, including employees and members of the public, can escape safely if there is a fire. The key requirement is that everyone must be able to escape safely. For a fire to start, 3 essential things are needed: a source of ignition, fuel, and oxygen. These make up the fire triangle. If any of these is missing, a fire cannot begin. Potential sources of ignition can include smokers' materials and discarded cigarettes, naked flames, hot surfaces or processes, overheated electrical equipment and faulty electrical equipment. Sources of fuel could include paper and card, plastics, rubber and foam. Liquids such as paints and varnishes can also be flammable, as well as gases such as liquefied petroleum gas. Sources of oxygen include the air around us, some chemicals, oxygen supplies from cylinder storage, and pyrotechnics. All premises must have a fire detection and warning system. Fire detection and warning systems are very important, and all workers and visitors should be familiar with the procedures for operating them. The alarm may be raised automatically via a detection system, manually by operating a call point, or by some other means. Fire escape routes should take people from premises to a place of safety outside and well away from the area. This designated place should have the ability to be used safely and effectively at all times. In cases of emergency, everyone must be able to escape from danger safely, and all businesses should have evacuation procedures in place to deal with this. Under fire safety legislation, emergency routes and exits must be provided, where necessary, with adequate emergency lighting. Every employer, owner, manager or occupier of a premises must prepare an emergency plan in case of fire. You should carry out a fire drill at least once per year and record the results as a part of your fire risk assessment and evacuation plan. There are 4 main types of fire extinguisher which you may come across in your workplace: water, dry powder, foam, CO2 and wet chemical. Dry powder. These are suitable for fires involving flammable liquids or electrical apparatus. Water. These can be used to extinguish most fires except those involving flammable liquids or live electrical apparatus. Carbon dioxide. These are suitable for fires involving flammable liquids or electrical equipment. Foam. These can be used on most fires involving flammable liquids. Wet chemical. These are only suitable for fires involving cooking oils and fats. The correct extinguisher must be used on a fire to avoid disastrous consequences. For example, a water extinguisher used on a fire involving flammable liquids can cause a violent reaction. Please take a look at these fire safety signs. Welfare facilities. The Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare Regulations 1992 require employees to make provisions to ensure the health, safety and welfare of employees. Welfare facilities include temperature control, adequate ventilation, adequate humidity, adequate lighting, adequate workspace dimensions, cleanliness, toilet and washing facilities, rest and eating facilities. Employers must also ensure that employees and others do not smoke within the premises or within any area that is substantially enclosed. First aid. Under the Health and Safety First Aid Regulations 1981, employers must ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, the health, safety and welfare at work of all employees, make provision for employees to receive first aid treatment, ensure equipment and facilities provided are adequate and appropriate, provide an adequate number of suitable persons to administer first aid to employees who are injured or become ill at work, appoint a person to take charge of first aid facilities and equipment if the first aider is absent, appoint, depending on the size and nature of the organisation, a person to take charge of first aid rather than a qualified first aider, inform employees of first aid provisions including the location of equipment, facilities and personnel. All workplaces should have a first aid kit, although there is no mandatory list of items to include. Instead, it depends on what you assess your company's needs to be, and you might choose to include items relevant to your workplace. Leaflet giving general guidance on first aid. Individually wrapped sterile plasters of assorted sizes. You can provide hypoallergenic plasters if necessary. Sterile eye pads. Individually wrapped sterile triangular bandages. Safety pins. Individually wrapped sterile and non-medicated wound dressing in different sizes. A pair of disposable gloves. Take a look at these first aid safety signs. Workplace stress. Work-related stress develops when a person is unable to cope with the demands being placed on them. Stress can be a significant cause of illness and is known to be linked with high levels of absence, staff turnover, and other issues. Research shows that the main sources of stress are tasks, the work is beyond the individual's capability or capacity, or there is a case of information overload or boredom. Relationships, including interactions with other people, abuse and bullying. Job role. There are opposing demands made by different people and there is no clear idea of what is expected. There is little or no recognition for work done, a threat to personal safety or fear of redundancy or dismissal. Environmental factors, including noise, heat, lighting and cleanliness. Preventative measures should include identifying the main risk factors for work-related stress and putting controls in place to prevent them causing concern for employees. Drugs and alcohol. Drug misuse refers to the use of illegal drugs and the misuse, whether deliberate or unintentional, of prescribed drugs and substances such as solvents. You could be breaking the law if you knowingly allow drug-related activities in your workplace and you fail to act. You should have a policy in place to deal with drugs use at work. People under the influence of drugs may suffer from sudden mood changes, increased irritability, confusion, lack of concentration, slow reaction times, clumsiness and poor vision. The misuse of alcohol can lead to reduced productivity, an increase in taking time off work and an increase in accidents at work. As a result, employers are advised to adopt an alcohol policy in consultation with their staff. Some companies, especially in safety-sensitive industries, use screening and testing as a way of controlling alcohol problems. On average, it takes the body 1 hour to process 1 unit of alcohol. Workplace violence. Conflicts and disputes can arise over all sorts of situations, often due to miscommunication or poor leadership skills. If not managed correctly, conflicts can cause physical damage, psychological stress, and may lead to employees leaving the company or being dismissed. The HSE's definition of work-related violence is any incident in which a person is abused, threatened, or assaulted in circumstances relating to their work. Workplace harassment is when a person is repeatedly and deliberately abused, threatened, or humiliated in circumstances related to work. Improvements to prevent workplace violence may include training staff. Train employees well enough so that they understand how to recognise conflict, how to avoid it, and how to deal with the situation in case conflict cannot be avoided. Ensure everyone is aware of the company policy, including any reporting procedures or disciplinary procedures. Changing the layout of the workspace, create clearer corridors and more open workspaces to avoid blind spots and to avoid members of staff being isolated or unseen. Changing the working hours or job design. Try to avoid having staff working night shifts, particularly if they are required to work alone. Think about how cash is handled and transported. Are more staff needed to increase security? Perhaps credit cards or checks should be used instead. Improving the access, lighting or security of the premises, providing better lighting inside and outside of the premises, and better security measures such as cameras, alarms and door codes. Introduce security staff if necessary and ensure you keep a record of everyone who is entering the workplace. Now please continue to the quiz.